Eyes of the Wise, Volume 2. In Focus with Mahavan. On the then brand new Yamuna Expressway on the outskirts of New Delhi, I leaned out the window of our taxi and snapped these jolly gents as we all sped towards Vrindavan, the best place for Bhakti Yoga practice. It was October 2016 and my first time to India, and my 6 weeks there were packed with memorable moments. This one reminded me of how in previous ages yogis developed fantastic mystic powers with which they could control the forces of nature, and some were so powerful that they could move at the speed of the mind. As a sign of the times though, today most opt for more contemporary forms of transport. Although in previous ages superpowers were indeed available through the yoga system, it may be surprising to learn that the height of mystic achievement is not walking on water, producing gold out of thin air, or esoteric forms of transit, but the ability to see and treat all beings equally. This, the wise know, is actual human progress, and the gift of the genuine yoga and meditation practice described in Bhagavad Gita as it is. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. Bhagavad Gita 5:18. Is there anything more needed in today's world? Having equal vision would seem to be simple. Just try to see everyone equally. Yet, if you've ever seriously tried to do this, I'm sure you'll agree that it's much easier said than done. Why? Srila Prabhupada explains, the mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence, although the mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For a man in the practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium toward both friend and enemy, but ultimately no worldly man can do so, for this is more difficult than controlling the raging wind. Bhagavad Gita 6:34, purport. When we're disconnected from our source, we view others through the lens of our mind's eye, seeing them as competitors for scarce resources and dividing them into friends and enemies, despite our best intentions. True knowledge, however, empowers our intelligence to first distinguish the non-material self from the material body, and then to see the self's connection to the whole it's a part of, the super self. How do we access such knowledge? Krishna explains that the individual self, the Atma, is seated as on a machine made of the material energy, and he, as the super self, is also there in the heart of each soul as the origin of all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. If we want true equal vision, he who is the source of all beings, and also our perception of them, provides it through the topmost yoga system, Bhakti Yoga. Thus, the world's greatest need is available to all by the grace of Krishna, the master of all masters of mystic power. Hare Krishna. Our first picture here is of a piece of street art just a few doors down from my apartment here in Willis Street in the central business district of Wellington. And it caused me to think of this text here from the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, in which the speaker of the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami, is describing those who are unfortunately not interested in true knowledge of the self and the super self. And he explains here, persons devoid of Atma Tattva. Atma Tattva means knowledge of the self. He says they do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. So there's an energy in this world, an energy of illusion, which, although apparently enabling us to see reality, is actually blocking our vision. In the sense that, although we have so much experience of the impermanence of life, of the lack of security in material things, we still actually take shelter of what he calls here the fallible soldiers, our body, our children, our wife, etc. And we tend to feel that we're safe being surrounded by these fallible soldiers. So although sufficiently experienced, we still do not see. This is the influence of the illusory energy of the Supreme. This picture was taken at the Wellington waterfront, which I visit regularly for walking, getting some exercise, getting some fresh air, getting some sun. And this is a suspension bridge which joins one part of the waterfront to another. So we see this young man here coming out of the shadows and into the direct sun. So this reminds me of this famous text from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The Sanskrit is Tamasima Jyotirgama, which is translated as, don't stay in the darkness, come to the light. That darkness is the darkness of ignorance. We heard a little about that in the previous quote from Shukadev Goswami. And it specifically refers to the lack of knowledge that we have about who we really are beyond our body and mind, and what the ultimate goal of life is, and how we can achieve that goal. To understand those things clearly is what the Upanishad means by come to the light. So that is the purpose of yoga wisdom, to bring us out of this darkness of ignorance to the light of true knowledge. This is my friend Anadi Kishore, and the location is Mayapur in West Bengal in India. It was a pleasant surprise to see him there late last year when my wife and I were visiting Mayapur, and this picture was taken in the ISKCON Mayapur campus, just beside the Panchatattva hall. We were just sitting there under the shade trees chatting, and many of the locals there, they like to have their picture taken with Western bhakti practitioners. And so as we were sitting there chatting, a lady approached and asked Anadi to hold her baby boy for a picture. So it was a nice moment, and of course he's very kind and obliging. So here he is, posing with the cute little boy. So this picture reminded me of this statement by Krishna in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The chapter is entitled Devotional Service. And in this particular section of the chapter, Krishna is glorifying the qualities of those that are very dear to him. That means the qualities of devotees. In this text he says, one who is not envious but is a kind friend to all living entities. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So this was a nice moment. This is at the skate park, which is near the Wellington waterfront, and there are many striking pieces of graffiti art at the skate park. This particular one, of course, is very direct. Be you. Be authentic. Don't try to be someone else. Be yourself. What does this mean? To be you, to be yourself? Does it mean to be the body? Does it mean to be the mind? Or does it mean to be the you which is beyond the body and mind? Here we have Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita explaining that you and me, which is the you and me that we should really be. He says, for the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. This picture was taken on a side street just down the road from my flat here in Willis Street. Again, more striking street art. The green shape on the left with the red bird painted on it is a shipping container. And just like so many things here in Wellington that are ordinary, they get covered in often very attractive street art. So this reminded me of a particular purport by Srila Prabhupada in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam 1-8 purport, where Srila Prabhupada says that the question of the satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. The body and mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleansing the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see the free light and the spirit. That complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, the personality of Godhead. Very memorable purport here by Srila Prabhupada. This picture was taken on the terrace which runs parallel to the street I live on, Willis Street. And very striking contrast here between the natural structure of the tree and the man-made structure of the buildings. And it appears that the buildings are towering over the tree. In other words, man is towering over nature, through domination. So this reminded me of these texts from the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That chapter is called Divine and Demoniac Natures. And in these texts, Krishna is explaining the demoniac or materialistic philosophy and how that actually plays out in terms of lifestyle and consequences to that lifestyle. He says they, meaning the materialists, say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust. Following such conclusions, the demoniac, who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. In other words, the basis of true materialism is a philosophy that basically everything just happens by chance. There is only matter and material causes. There's no such thing as a non-material reality or a supreme controller. There's no real rhyme or reason to why things happen. Things just happen randomly. And you only live once, so get it while you can. Here Krishna explains in a nutshell that philosophy and also the sum of the consequences of that philosophy. This image was taken in Loy Bazaar in Vrindavan in India, and this is a friendly gold and silversmith there in the market. My wife was trying on a couple of necklaces here in the shop, and when she made up her mind, it was time to pay the price. Everything has its price, including pure love. And here in this text by Rupa Goswami, he explains what that price is. He says, pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can be attained only by paying one price, that is, intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. Here we are down at the Wellington waterfront on the beach at Oriental Parade. This is usually where I go walking. It's nice and flat and relatively protected from the wind, particularly the southerly wind, which is very cold. And on this day we saw this man with a very interesting tattoo there, which reminded me of the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. In this 5th text of that chapter, Krishna says that material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So Krishna uses this term conditioned. He's explaining how the soul comes from the spiritual world and enters the material world and then becomes conditioned by nature, specifically 3 aspects of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. Now, if we look at the dictionary, we have a definition of conditioning: the process of training or accustoming a person or animal to behave in a certain way or to accept certain circumstances. So generally, without looking at this through the lens of the Bhagavad Gita, we would think of physical conditioning, social conditioning, psychological conditioning. But what Krishna is referring to here in this 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita about the three modes of nature is existential conditioning. That material nature, in terms of these three modes, trains us or accustomizes us to behave in certain ways and to accept certain circumstances. It forces us to think that I am my particular body, I am an enjoyer, I am a controller. This is the existential conditioning that material nature imposes upon the pure soul when the soul comes in contact with it. This picture was taken in Courtney Place. In our last e-photozine we had a picture from the Bliss Bar on Courtney Place, and this is another bar on Courtney called the Shady Lady, which according to them is Wellington's #1 party bar. So picking up from where we left off in the previous picture, we're hearing now about one of those three modes of nature, specifically the mode of passion. Krishna says here, this is in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in which he goes into more detail about these three modes of nature than in the 14th chapter. He says that happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. So everything within our material experience can be divided up into these three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance, including happiness. And here Krishna is explaining happiness in the mode of passion. It appears to be very, very pleasing at the beginning when the senses contact their objects, but after some time it becomes just like poison. In this way, the mode of passion is indeed a very shady lady. She presents herself as being very alluring, very attractive, very pleasing, but actually after some time she reveals her real nature to be just like poison. Because whatever we enjoy in this world is limited by time and space, and therefore the enjoyment ends, which is a very poisonous experience for the eternal self, who is accustomed originally to endless enjoyment, endless pleasure. This picture was taken on the Kapiti coast. I think it was Hokio Beach. And this is my wife here in the top right hand corner looking out into the ocean. These are not her footprints. Someone had been there before us and left these footprints on the sand. This particular image reminds me of Krishna's statement in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita regarding transmigration of the soul from body to body and the natural law of karma. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So here Krishna compares our different conceptions of life, our different conceptions of what happiness is, to aromas which are carried by the air, us, from body to body. So during our lifetime, we perform so many activities which are like footprints in the sand, so to speak, and that develops for us at the end of our life a particular conception of what happiness is. And then we take that conception from this life into the next life. That conception actually forms for us another body in which to try again to satisfy that particular conception of happiness. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. This is the process of transmigration of the soul, or samsara, the cycle of repeated birth and death. This picture was taken on the Wellington waterfront. This is a bus stop there, and there's a government campaign on. I'm not sure if it's still going, but at this time, just recently, this campaign was being heavily advertised everywhere and anywhere. Don't let likes replace love. So it's a petition to raise the social media age, which I think has been approved in Australia, and I'm trying to do the same thing here. So I like this slogan, don't let likes replace love. We can broaden it to outside the context of social media to our whole existence. Basically, that's Krishna's message in the Bhagavad Gita. Don't let something superficial replace the real thing. Here in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, Krishna explains the real thing. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination. We could say that material contamination is the likes, and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So that transcendental loving service, that is the real thing. And we come to our cover shot for this edition, and the shot was taken, as we explained in the In Focus section, as I was travelling from New Delhi to Vrindavan. This was back in 2016, and I thought it was an appropriate image to illustrate this particular point of equal vision that Krishna mentions in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives us more details of what that equal vision is and how to achieve it. He says that a Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species, but these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. For the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned, in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone, because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma, regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body of a Brahmana and that of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the supersoul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and supersoul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. So again, the body is compared to a vehicle upon which the individual soul is seated, and as well as the individual soul in that body, there is also the supersoul. And if we can learn to see through the authorized process of yoga and meditation recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga, the connection between the individual soul and the supersoul, then we can see beyond bodily differences, whether they be social differences or even differences of species, and in that way have true equal vision. Hare Krishna.